This time, European Championships Reheated. Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a football podcast in which fans attempt the seemingly impossible to rank once and for all who are the greatest teams of all time. My name's Graham Dunn, and joining me over in our data corner, we have Jamie Rooney.
Hello, Graham. We're on a Euro trip, a Euro holiday. Is it hot tub time machine Euro trip? I don't know. Where did we get to with the time machine?
This must be some kind of hot tub time machine. Yeah, very much so. Yes, whilst the Euros are going on and whilst we are in our closed season after finishing season 2 of By Far the Greatest Team, we thought we would just keep a bit of content coming at you by reheating a few of our European Championship classic teams that we've done. Of course, we have just come off the back of our Euro 96 special, in which we established that glorious tournament though that was, there wasn't really much by way of goal action, and the memory of living through it and the summer of 96 and Britpop is maybe it wasn't quite what we thought it was. Is that a fair summary, Jamie?
Yeah, I think a fair summary would be for Euros 96, Gascoigne goal, 15 brilliant minutes against the Netherlands, lots of awful shots, and a really rubbish tournament.
Yeah, broadly that, and a chip, a lob, or a scoop, depending how you view Davor Suker or Poborski's goals. Yes, what we thought we'd do just over the summer is just point in the direction of a few different European teams or European Championship teams that we've covered across the 2 seasons of the podcast. Now, the first of these, I think we might have coming up, Jamie, is back from season 1 when we were doing teams in slightly shorter order. Is that about right?
Yes, we tried to condense an episode to rank 3 teams from the glorious past, these fantastic football teams in a single episode. And I think by episode 6, we realised that wasn't going to work going forward, and we've now streamlined our format so it's 1 team per episode, generally with a couple of double headers. But yeah, we it's almost like we could see the future when we were building this together, that we'd need some kind of gap fillers when the Euros are on in 2024. So we've covered the glorious Netherlands team with Mario Tilney Bassett when we featured the brilliant David Pleat's Tottenham team. So the Netherlands in 1988, and then we got the thunderclaps of Iceland, that great team that destroyed the England career of Roy Hodgson and knocking England out in the Euro 2016 tournament, but they went on to lose against France. And then in season 2, we covered the great Panenka, football in verbs, which we love. The Czechoslovakian team that beat the mighty West Germany on penalty kicks in 1976, the only penalty shootout that West Germany have ever lost.
At the time of recording, of course. We have they are 3 great teams. All 3 of those teams are in the current tournament, and well, no, they're not. Sorry, 2 of those teams in the current tournament. Iceland, of course, aren't, but England are doing their best
you're right.
Repeat their performance against Iceland.
I think you're right, Graham. 3 of those teams are in the current tournament. We've got the Netherlands, and we've got Czech, and we've got Slovakia.
Yeah, that's very good. I like it. Excellent. So we have those lined up for you now, coming up over these next 3 weeks. So please sit back and enjoy Euro Classics. I mean, there's quite often people talk about those underdog stories and the little team against the big teams. But Euro 2016, Iceland, that really is a little team, isn't it?
Well, there's 11 players on the pitch. There's 23 in the squad. But in terms of the nation, it's incredible that a nation of 330,000 people, just under, can put together a football team that qualifies for one of the most biggest tournaments in world football. You know, the Euros, 24 teams as it was in 2016. it's almost on a par in terms of the size and scale and quality of a World Cup. It's an incredible achievement, because if you look at Iceland's record prior to that, you would not see this coming. They hadn't even got close. I think maybe the tournament before, the World Cup before, I think they missed out on a playoff with Croatia. I can't remember exactly, but before that, beyond that, there was no sign that Iceland was ever going to be a team that would qualify for a major finals. And obviously, we know that they went on and they then qualified for the World Cup in 2018 as well. But we're focusing around the 2016 team and the incredible achievement of what they did in making the last 24.
It's as you say, it's not only extraordinary. I mean, to bring for a team to qualify with 350,000 population there, but also for that team to qualify and then for it to bring 10% of its population to the games to watch the tournament. I mean, it's like a family outing. It's just too brilliant that 10%. I mean, what happened to the country's GDP during then? It's just extraordinary. It is. I mean, it is interesting. The story of Iceland is, and I said they were the little guys. I mean, obviously they weren't little on the pitch. They're quite a robust team. The achievement is quite something, and there is. This isn't by accident, is it? I mean, Iceland actually, which is not an obvious place. I mean, there are some clear reasons why you can't easily play football in the country. Not least that for half the year there's no daylight.
It's true, and do you know what? It wasn't their qualification for 2016 and the World Cup in 2018. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a long-term planning. So around about the turn of the century 2000s, the country invested heavily and significantly in infrastructure. They built pitches around the island. I've been to Iceland. I've seen these domes, these indoor football pitches, and effectively they made football accessible to all across the whole of the country. I think by 2018 they had almost 150 pitches on this ice island, effectively, and they made football inclusive as well. So it wasn't just these incredible facilities that they built, these all-weather pitches where they could actually play all year round. Previously, they could only play a few months of the year because, as you rightly pointed out, it was dark and bitterly cold for most of the time. But with these indoor centres and these all-weather pitches, they were able to effectively encourage people to play football, male, female, up to the age of 18, no matter what level. And that's a really key thing as well. It wasn't for the elite. It wasn't for effectively, league teams and their development. They were used for those purposes, but they made football accessible to the whole country, no matter what the level. And aside to this, they invested quite heavily in coaching as well. So in terms of making sure that the coaches that were facilitating and working on the island of Iceland had the right education. So whether they had their level A or level B badges, it was imperative that they had the right level of coaching education before they could actually become a football coach. And the salaries paid well as well. So effectively, it's an attractive job. Not only is it glamorous, teaching youngsters how to play, but it comes with a fairly tidy salary as well.
Having coached some youngsters myself, firstly, the salary would have been nice. Secondly, they probably would have appreciated a FIFA level A or B coach rather than someone more randomly. Just put the cones out and kick it amongst yourselves. Now that Icelandic team, which did so well, there was quite an influential figure, I guess, in Lars Lagerbäck, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the former who was at the helm. A slightly unusual joint managership they had, actually, didn't they, at the time? Because he was joint manager with a dentist,
Heimer Hugrensen. He was a part-time dentist, yeah. But he was also in tune with his football tactics.
And in fact, took over from Lagerbäck at the after 2016, I think, didn't he? I think he gave up the dentistry. or has or paused the dentistry at the point.
He is, and the profile as well. I mean, even to this day, he's still coaching. I think he's with the Jamaican national team right now. So he's clearly, he does a bit of maybe dental work on the weekends, but generally the day job is trying to organise football teams to qualify for major tournaments. Do you know what's interesting though about Lars Lagerbäck? Well-known name. We've seen him at plenty of Euros and World Cups with Sweden down the years. The joint management he had at Iceland with Hallgrímsson wasn't his first. He was also a joint manager for the Swedish national team. And this is a period around about the 2000s. And I saw his statistics. So as the Sweden joint manager, he had an unbeaten record in a 59-game run of 83%. That's pretty impressive. As a sole coach, 72 games, so a few more games, it's down to 67%. So on its own, doesn't sound that strange. Worked better with the two of them than the one. However, Iceland as well, the same. So when he was on his own, he had a 32-game run, a 55% unbeaten ratio. But when he was with Hallgrímsson as a joint manager for a 20-game run, it was 62.5%. So again, it's increased. So that very straw poll of statistics suggests that working with somebody got the better about Lars Lagerbäck than working on his own, potentially.
I wonder how I suppose it depends how he set up, and it might be that he did all the attacking coaching and he left the defensive side to the other guy, and then just sort of forgot to adapt that, in those first couple of games when he was doing it on his own. But, boss, what are we going to do on corners? What are we doing when we're defending set pieces? Where do we stand? Oh,
just put out the cones. Just put out the cones.
It is a surreal stat, and it's one of the few. It's unusual to go that way. I mean, you don't see a great deal of that joint managership. Roy Evans, Gerard Houllier springs to mind, and usually it's a sort of polite way of then getting okay. One of you is going to be phased out, and it's probably not the guy who was there at the start.
It's an unusual setup having co-managers, and I haven't taken the opportunity to look at the statistics for other co-managers, Houllier and Evans, but it would be interesting to see whether the unbeaten record or the win ratio is higher together than it is when they're apart.
I'm thinking Lagerbäck is going to be the exception to the rule. I mean, this is obviously with Iceland. It is, I guess, it's almost like your classic giant killer story, and as a result, you're almost like your non-league club going in against the league club. And of course, the story you always get with one of those is commentators obsessing with the jobs of the part-time players or the various bits and pieces. And Iceland, it wasn't quite like that, but you had players who had other careers and went on before and after, of which my favourite is the goalkeeper. I don't know if you're familiar with Hannes Halldórsson, who was keeper in that tournament. So before the Euro 16 in 2012, he'd worked as a filmmaker, and one of the films he had produced was the Icelandic Eurovision Song Contest entry film that went with with their entry there. I don't think the year they won, but and it is absolutely brilliant. So if you look on Wikipedia, the description for Hannes Halldórsson is an Icelandic filmmaker and former professional footballer. Now, I mean, apart from the fact he's basically had my life, I mean, the dream life, what more would you want to achieve in the world than those two things? The guy's played at Euro 16. He plays at the World Cup 2 years later. By the way, at that World Cup, he saves a penalty from Lionel Messi. Now, and that isn't even what he is most known for. It's unbelievable.
That is quite fascinating, and I mean, it is a dream job being a filmmaker and a footballer. I mean, they were the two things I failed the most at. The two things I wanted to be the most, and the two things I failed at. But maybe there's a theme here, because we talked about, Heimer Hallgrímsson, the coach, was a dentist and a football coach. Now we're talking about the goalkeeper being a filmmaker. Maybe the requirement to get into the Icelandic football team is that you have to have a secondary job.
Now, of course, I think so. They actually qualified, quite impressively actually out of their group, and then they have this big game with England, massive underdogs for that game, and I think the way they won that is extraordinary actually, because England go ahead in that game, don't they? It's kind of you might
Early on.
expect, yeah, exactly. Having scored early, you would have been expecting, if Iceland were to win that game, to maybe do it against the run of play or holding out. Now, aside from the fact they didn't win, it wasn't remotely against run of play, which is another story about how poorly. But actually, the way they brought themselves back into that game was a mark of how good they were. In fact,
yeah, I mean they were organised, and one of the things that had happened in the group stage is they'd drawn with Portugal, who we know went on and won the whole thing, and they frustrated Cristiano Ronaldo in that game to the point that his comments after the game was quite insultive, really. I mean, he just, a petulant outburst, a rarity for Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously. He referred to the Iceland team as, small-minded mentality. And, they're a country of 330,000 people. They're going to be, in a bizarre way, they're going to think small. And I don't mean that as a slur or as an insult, because of where they're situated in the world and effectively the number of people populating the island, and the fact that 10% were behind the team as well in France in 2016. They are going to think small, and I think it's that thinking small that made them great. It's kind of making the most of the sum of their parts, and the Icelandic people generally are fairly calm. They're humble. They could be quite quiet or sometimes quite loud depending on the environment, but they're generally smart people that make the most of their situation. And I think that's exactly what the football team has done here. And they may have frustrated Cristiano Ronaldo, but they did their job. Their job was to try to not lose to one of the best teams in world football, the team that would go on and win it. And they achieved that. And they remained unbeaten. They drew with Hungary, who topped the group, and they beat Austria before they met England. And when they met England, I do remember that game. And I remember the confidence from an England perspective going into that, which is quite stupid, really. Nowadays, being an England fan in major tournaments, you've probably got a little right to feel a bit confident. I mean, if you're a 15-year-old kid, you probably only ever known that England is successful-ish at world tournaments. They make the last stages, but before that, it was painful, and it has been painful being an England fan.
I talked about the fans earlier, and I think that's the other great contribution, and it's not directly a direct contribution of the side themselves, but it's all to do with the feel of Iceland and the mood they engendered, because the fans brought the thunderclap, didn't they, to the crowd, which is a fantastic development. It's quite rare to bring something completely new. Now, there's a lot of debate as to where the origins of that come from. Some say it's connected to the film 300, not film I have ever come across. So I might watch that to see if I can work that out. Others suggest it originated in Motherwell, which was also a curiosity to me. It was not the obvious place, but it's definitely it was definitely embodied at the greatest way, I think, in that tournament. And again, that sort of encapsulates the spirit of the team, I think.
It was fantastic. And what's fantastic about the games that the Icelandic players played in, at the end, they would always go acknowledge that crowd, and they would join in with this thunderous clap. And it was fascinating, because you're right, until that point, football noise, chanting songs had always been of a fairly upbeat, quick tempo, or something that kind of resembled a popular song. And here we've got this very slow clap that's a bit eerie, a bit spooky, and it's coordinated perfectly and kind of builds and builds and builds and builds. And I have no idea where it originated from, but in terms of how the Icelandic team embraced it and how it caught on in the tournament was fantastic. I mean, it kind of lived into the next major tournament, which was the World Cup in 2018.
The other great thing that this Icelandic team bring, and this is, as we go across the pod, this is always going to be a crucial factor for us as to what makes a great team, is we're talking kit. And kits are sort of fundamentally great for us. Now, there have been many great kits around over the years, but I think Iceland take the credit for choosing to base their 2016 kit on the Escape to Victory kits worn in that film. It's Escape to Victory, a film I'm sure we will reference again at some point as an extremely iconic film. If you haven't seen it, I cannot, and we'll pop a couple of pictures of these in the on the social channels. The kits are essentially the same, right down to the goalkeepers. You have the blue with the white and red stripe down one side, and then the white is the same. I saw a picture. I noticed this when I don't think I even noticed this at the time, but I definitely noticed it when I saw a picture and I was looking up a picture of the keeper, and that's from Escape to Victory. Now that, in my book, is definitely something that makes them great.
Do you know what? That is fantastic. That really is fantastic, because I've watched Escape to Victory so many times, and shamefully, I love and adore the film. And if it's on a Sunday afternoon on Channel 5, I can't help myself but to make time to watch it again. But I hadn't made that connection. I just thought they were adopting the Croatian approach, where they just basically make their flag their football kit, because it looks like the Icelandic flag as well, if I recall. But maybe I've got that completely wrong, and your reference is definitely better. And I had completely missed that.
I'm sure that's what it's based on.
I believe it wholeheartedly, and I feel my life has been enriched just by knowing this. Absolutely, I've just noted a few extra marks for greatness on that one.
So we should get to the ranking system. If you haven't listened to the pod before, or like us, struggle with the basic concept of our ranking system, we'll go through it one more time. It's very simple. We've got 5 different categories of greatness, ranging from one of the greats right at the top. I really should write this down. One of the greats right at the top, true greats just below that. We have touch of greatness for those who touch greatness, probably our middle ranking one. Just below that, we go for edge of greatness. And then we have a lovely category called blink of greatness, which is for teams who maybe weren't that great, but we all love them. And after last week's pod, we're opting for a additional bonus one, which is our special pot that we have for not great, but without them we wouldn't be where we are today. Jamie, Iceland 2016, where do you put them?
A couple of things I haven't mentioned just to share with you before I give you my ranking on them. But of the 24 teams that went to France, they would have taken 23 players. Every single Icelandic player in the squad played outside Iceland. Every single one played in European leagues that were not Iceland. And to kind of give you some context, only the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland were the only other 2 teams that didn't have a player that represented their leagues. But both of those teams were full with players from England or Scotland. So the English or Scottish League, which is perfectly normal. It's always been the case for teams from Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland to be the majority be populated by teams in England or Scotland. So the fact that you've got this bunch of players that effectively they've not only got this incredible infrastructure that they've put in place, which they've geared to greatness, they've invested in the coaches, they've opened the doors to football for all, which has created this golden generation of Icelandic players. They've exported players. So they've effectively shared the beauty of these players with the rest of the world, which is fantastic. Just as a side as well, So I don't know if you looked at the squad, the 23-man squad, and this hasn't struck me until we started doing the research on this team for this pod. Every single Icelandic player, surname or family name as we know it, ends in son. Every single one. And that may seem quite strange, but clearly there must be a reason for that. And the reason is, I don't know if you know this, Graham, is that in Iceland, it's perfectly normal not to have a family name, not to have a surname. So effectively, you just adopt your father's name if you're male and have the suffix of son, or your mother's name, or your father's name again, sorry, if you're a daughter, but you have the suffix of daughter, which is dottir, basically. So all the players in Iceland, they just have first names, and they just go, even the president of Iceland, they all go by their first name. They don't use surnames, which I thought was quite a fascinating fact about Icelandic names. But that doesn't really have anything to do with greatness. I just thought I'd chuck it in there before we move on to the next slide.
It's definitely good. I have come across this and again, like you, I'd sort of been pondering. It's odd, but why are they all Som? It's a very bizarre thing.
It is. It's fascinating. No family name in Iceland, which is great. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. Where do I rank them? So, in two ways I look at this. Firstly, I look at it from a Icelandic perspective. This is a golden generation. This is a team where a tenth of the population has followed them to France to play in their first major football tournament. They've also qualified from their group with the Netherlands and Turkey, and they qualified quite comfortably as well. I mean, they didn't win on their last three games, but they had pretty much qualified by game number 7 by winning 6 and losing 1. And to win a group where the Netherlands are in is no small feat. I know the Netherlands have had their problems down the years, but generally you expect the Netherlands to qualify for major tournaments. So they've come from a brilliant qualifying group. They've then come second in their group. They've then quite deservedly beaten England in the round of 16. And then they've met the host France, where they've been caught a little bit short, bless them, and then smashed 5-0 or 5-1, I think it was. If I look at this from an Icelandic perspective, this is definitely a true great, I would say, because of everything that's happened before it, and everything happens when it's really happening. However, if I take my Icelandic lens off, and this is where I become unpopular, I would say they're touch of greatness, and I think that's where I'd rank them in terms of this particular team, because it is a touch of greatness. There's nothing that was before. There's the World Cup in 2018, but there's nothing happening now, and they are falling down the rankings. So maybe they're just going for a blip, and they will come back. But I think if I was Icelandic, I definitely would see this as true greats. But in terms of my ranking, I'm going to say touch of greatness.
It's difficult to argue against that. I think if I would, their big scalp was Roy Hodgson's England, and I think looking back on that, that's maybe less of a scalp than it seemed at the time. A harsh man might take them down to edge of greatness, but I love the Icelandic story. I'm happy to stick with you on that. So Iceland, Euro 16, touch of greatness. So there you have it. One of our favourite Euro Championship teams there. As we mentioned, we are on our summer holidays from by far the greatest team. Season 2 just completed. We are prepping ourselves for season 3 as we speak, and for one or two maybe little pre-season friendlies that we can line up during that. But we have done a fair number of these podcasts now. We've got more than 50 or so. Jamie, where can people find the details of our podcast?
So we have a website, thegreatestteam.co, where they can see all the teams that we've ranked in the past. We're also available on all of the podcast providers and platforms that you may use, most notably Apple and Spotify. You can find us there, by far the greatest team. And I think, Graham, by season 3, we might have a little YouTube channel coming our way where people can actually watch and laugh at how we rank these teams.
Yes, if you do, we're looking forward to that. And if you do want to check out any of our rankings, many of which defy explanation even by us, when it comes back to looking back to them, you can find all of those at the website. And we've done a whole load of episodes, and they are, if you're not familiar with the podcast, there's a whole variety of deep dives on minor sides. We have some epic teams along the way, and we've got sometimes we have informed guests on, sometimes it's just me and you, Jamie. So as a reminder, you can, of course, get hold of us on all the social platforms as well. Myself at Said and Done, it's DUNN, and Jamie at Couch Pundito on the artist formerly known as X. We'd love to hear from you if there are any sides that you think would be worth a look at, any ones that you want us to give that treatment to. And of course, if you're interested in supporting the podcast through advertising or sponsorship or any such elements to enable us to keep doing this, we'd love to hear from you. So again, you can contact us on those same channels.